vision, but the skill to translate that into works of art, right? I mean, even if I have amazing ideas of a novel, but if I don't have the skills of writing, I could not produce an amazing novel. But I can tell you, millions of people have great ideas, great stories. They just don't have the skills and the vocabulary, right, to do that and put it all in. Now, with these technologies, everyone could realize whatever it is envisioned in their head. So I think, on the one hand, it has the potential to unleash unprecedented level of human ingenuity and creativity. But on the other hand, it will also bring existential crisis. Because on the one hand, you have that ability to create whatever comes to your mind, but also waste away your life, right? And then really ask about the question, what is your relevance? And we'll talk about that. There will be an age of abundance. I mean, if there's any point in the history of humanity you would want to live, it is today. The kind of facilities that we enjoy, kings of the past history did not enjoy that, right? But also, it will create a lot of social disruption. Why? Because there will be a lot of change. What happened 200 years back, that one generation was in agriculture, the next generation or next few generations went into manufacturing, the next few generations went into services, right? But here, the changes are impacting so fast that within a generation, everyone will need to transform themselves, to figure out what is their relevance, right? So many people will not be able to do that. That will create massive chaos in terms of social disruption, job loss, and others. So we are kind of living in the age of dichotomies. Very soon we'll see that. This will also, on the one hand, continue to increase standard of living. You will be able to get whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want, because the cost of incremental production will be close to zero. But then on the other hand, only those people who will be taking advantage of these technologies will have that access. All the others, there will be a lot of inequality that will happen. So I think that is something which is. So I'm just giving you these trends because so that you might kind of chalk your careers accordingly. It's impacting both blue collar and white collar workers. In fact, in many ways, white collar workers faster than blue collar workers, right? I've seen so many startups that I've recently met who are bringing efficiency into marketing domain, into content creation. And marketing departments are shrinking. So again, linked to the job loss part over there. There is pressure on democratic institutions. There is populist uprising across the globe. And this is we have entered an era of disillusionment. The whole capitalistic model is now being challenged. Is that the right way of approaching it? And that discussion is happening. And I believe in the next decade, we will see establishment of a new world order. I think the world order that was established after World War II, those institutions will be disrupted and new institutions will be formed, perhaps even the war between the reserve currency and others. So all these changes are going to bring chaos, but also opportunities, massive opportunities. So hopefully you'll find some nuggets over here today to be able to use some of that. What the interesting part is that nobody knows the future, but I know that only those people who create the future will be the winners. So either you kind of discuss about it and be disillusioned by all these changes, or just experiment your way through creating of the future. So don't kind of be subdued by all the changes and all the negativity and all the chaos around it. Be the creators of the future, right? That will be the key to success, right? And in faculty as well, right? So I think that's the part that faculty should encourage that and be part of that. The important part, if you probably, some of you have already read his books, right? So he did, this is a very profound quote I love from his book is we will be fighting against irrelevance. Everybody will need to figure out, regardless of where you are, what is your age, what is your experience, we'll need to figure out how to stay relevant in this rapidly changing world, right? And we'll need to, I mean, you guys, I anticipate, have at least 5 or 6 careers over the course of your life. Gone are the days when you kind of got an education, you became a chartered accountant, you became an engineer, you became a CA or whatever, and then you'll live 35, 40 years on the same professions. I think that era is gone. So we all will need to reinvent ourselves every few years. And that should be part of our psyche, right? If you expect that, then you won't be feeling uncomfortable. Only you'll be feeling uncomfortable if you don't expect and that thing happens to you. So the talk, the key kind of 2 themes on this is how can we stay relevant, and then what is the human factor when we are, so what we are seeing in AI and ChatGPT is just the beginning. This is the worst it will ever be. Imagine, it will every 6 months it will be doubling in its capacity, and then very soon we will have artificial general intelligence. Imagine, so I give you, what is the reason why human beings have been able to control other creatures across the globe? What do you think is the main reason?
Intelligence.
Intelligence. Now imagine if there is a super intelligence that comes in, which is 1,000,000 times faster, 1,000,000 times more powerful. Then what will that intelligence do to us?
And replace us?
It might control us, just like we're controlling other natural intelligences, right? So we might be subdued. So how can we stay relevant? So that's the kind of theme for today. And I'll kind of focus on 2 aspects. One is as a business. Why business? Because business is a vehicle of change, to be very honest. It's an organized way of bringing bigger change in the other part is the political movements and social movements. I'm not going to touch those. But business is where actually, as you enter, you graduate, you enter into the industry, you play a part in bringing about change, right? A lot of changes, cloud computing, automotive, airlines, they're all done by businesses. So that's very important to understand what businesses are going through. And then as an individual, so I'll kind of close it as individual, each one of you, what kind of you can bring in. So hopefully that will be helpful. So as a business, let me give you one question. What is the key phenomenon that distinguishes free market capitalistic economy than other societies like socialism, communism, and others? What are thoughts? Any thoughts?
Market forces determine the price of all goods and services.
Okay, yeah.
Right, less or no control over the market.
Control, the centralized control is not, okay. Anything else? All these are right answers. One thing which I want to point is the phenomenon of creative destruction. If you look at chances of disrupting an existing industry or a company, regardless of whether that industry or the company has been around for a century, it's higher in capitalistic economies, free market. Automotive industry was there for more than a century. Who disrupted it? Tesla, a startup from Palo Alto, California, right? Retail was always there, brick and mortar. Who disrupted it? Amazon, right? And you can name it. Taxis is another industry, which is who disrupted it? Another startup in Silicon Valley, right? Nokia, Motorola were giants in six. Who disrupted it? Another technology company, Apple, from. And there are like so many media. Blockbuster was a thing, and we used to watch VHS and DVDs and others. And there's so many examples out there. And there are some which are emerging, Bitcoin and others, which are disrupting the existing part. I think that's part and parcel of the creative destruction. If the incumbents are unable to transform, somebody else will come and disrupt it. And the chances, and why that happens, because in free market economy, there is commensurate amount of reward for the risk that the startup founder takes. Right? In a centralized controlled economy, that is not there. mean, look at what happened to Jack Ma, who disappeared for several months in China because he said something wrong about the governance. And so that kind of thing, a lot of billionaires from those countries, they end up, why is Elon Musk only in US, even though he was born in South Africa and not anywhere else? There is a reason for that. So keep that in mind. And what happens, let me give you a little bit more. Every company, every product, every idea follows this S curve. How many of you have seen that? In the beginning, you don't know whether that idea is going to flourish or not. A lot of experimentation happens there. Then you find product market fit, and at that point, the idea is validated, capital can be raised, and then you can scale. But at some point, you kind of reach the plateau of it. And at that point, you cannot stay there. You'll either have to find the next S curve or you will die. Any examples of companies which were able to transform successfully or not? Some examples here. And you can see a lot, and the graveyard of business is full of those companies and industries which are no more there. So if a company, and this is important as well, because when you will be graduating and joining a company, look at it, where does that company lie in that S curve? If the company is at the top, it's already suffering. You want to be part of a growing company rather than kind of a stale or transforming company or does not know what the future lies. But then if you are right there where company's business is humming along, they have enough capital to experiment with new ideas, I think that's where the opportunity lies. Any ideas, what are the big companies which might be at that cusp? And any good companies which might be at the beginning? Any thoughts?
OpenAI at the beginning, and for example, someone like Google and
You're right. Google, OpenAI, Perplexity, and others are right there, right? So this is, just keep that in mind. So when these companies are looking at transforming themselves, so I work with a lot of those companies, large multi-billion-dollar businesses who were looking to transform. So my interactions with the executives essentially focused on, they were asking whether we should be transforming their business model or focusing on technology or customers. These were kind of things. So what do you think, where should the focus be when an existing company wants to transform? Should it be looking at technologies? Should it be looking at business models? Should it be looking at customers? Any thoughts? Customers, right? So not technology? That's good. I like it. So that's the difference. Whenever I give this talk to engineering schools, they kind of focus on technology. Business schools, they focus on business models. So I like the liberal arts part, focus on customer. Let me give you a fictitious example. This is a company which is focused selling any physical goods, primarily through sales channels. So they have account teams, they go and then sell to the customers. Very little self-service, if at all any, right? But then they realize that, hey, they are being disrupted, so they need to evolve and bring a lot of their revenue from self-service channel, online channel, etc. But then they have these, sales will continue to play a role over there. So they can essentially look at technologies and the process changes that they need to bring in. I'm not going to go through the details over there. But then I think the important part would be to look at who. And in who, number one is customers. And those customers are very important, not just the customers of today, but maybe when they go into different channels, it might be a different segment of customers, maybe younger audience or others. But then another important part is that they need to understand the internal organizational teams, product teams, sales teams, cares and ops teams. Because see, when 1/3 of your revenue will be coming from online channel, whose pocket will be most impacted? It will be the sales team's pockets. They get commission, right? They would want the commission, but the new structure will not allow them to get all the commission because those sales will not be coming through their efforts, they'll be coming online, right? There'll be a lot of resistance inside the organization. So I'll briefly talk about why the human factor is so important in this change. So if you look at these stakeholders, these are customers and stakeholders, an important part is these are all human beings. So how can we understand the needs of customers? Let's focus on customers first, and then we go to the stakeholders. And then I'll hopefully bring it all together in one way. So how to understand customers' needs? So for that, let me ask you a quick question. Give me an answer. What's the best way to go from Karachi to Lahore?
Right?
Sorry? Train? Flight?
Yeah.
Okay?
Depends on.
Exactly. So this is the part. Now, if I need to go for a meeting in the afternoon, I take morning flight, come back. Flight is nice. But if I need to take my family to vacation and enjoy the sightseeing and experience all the points, then train is good. If I am a student, hard for cash, I need to find some other bus routes or some cheaper routes. If I am an executive and I found a job in Lahore, and that requires me to move my family, I need a realtor to find a new house, I need help with finding schools for my kids, I need a moving company to move all my furniture. So the same question, but totally different answer, because dependent on who the question was for, and what was the context of the end user. And that's where design thinking comes into play. So design thinking essentially is the human-centered approach for innovation, where the focus is to understand human needs first. And then you kind of look at solution options, the feasibility part, and then to see the solution that you're building, whether it's viable from business perspective or not. But it starts from human needs perspective. So even though intuitively it's been there around, but around early 2000s was codified by Tom and David Kelly of IDEO as a design thinking as a mechanism, and that's where it became in early 2000s. There were Business Week, Harvard Business Review, all the universities started incorporating design thinking into their curriculum, and started. Now it's becoming to a point where every organization just has adopted it. A lot of companies are doing that. Also, another point is it is a very good approach of solving complex problems, and more importantly, right problems as well. Asking the right question at the beginning is so important. I'll give you one example. I was invited by a state government in US to solve their procurement execution problem. During our workshop, we laid out the entire procurement process, and execution took 1 week out of a 9-month cycle. So I asked the question, what happens in the first 8.5 months? I said requirements gathered from different departments. I said, if we improve 20% efficiency in the execution, we'll be saving 1 day. But if we find 20% improvement in this, we'll be saving 1 month. So wouldn't it make sense to solve that? They said yes, all the leaders. And then we switched the focus of the engagement to simplifying procurement requirement. So important point is to really understand the right problem first. So again, whenever you search design thinking, you'll find this kind of a diagram, desirability from user's perspective. Focus on that first. Then you start kind of experiment your way towards feasibility. What is the feasible option? While you also understand whether that has a business benefit as well. It's not just finding a nice, cool idea which you can develop, but you can't make any money out of it, or it's not commercially viable, right? So you need to bring it together. But if you don't start with desirability, you'll face challenges. So this is a kind of, in my book, this framework I've kind of, how to start. Everybody has an hunch. Hey, this idea is cool. Right? I'm sure over the last week you would have hundreds of ideas somewhere, taking shower or in your sleep. Ask yourself, okay, who's that idea solving for? Now talk to those individuals, talk to some of those users, potential users. Even though you don't have any sketch or anything. Hey, I think that you have this problem. Just validate it, talk to them, right? And I'll briefly touch base upon. So you need to understand and build empathy with the end users. What is their context? What is the problem? Validate your assumptions earlier on so that you can have a little bit of clarity on the problem to solve before you start thinking about how to solve it. So again, important point is to really understand the problem space, Then you do the same thing. Once you have clarity on what is the problem you're trying to solve, then focusing on users, you iterate your way towards the solution. My experience says that the first thought that came of an idea that came to your mind is rarely the final outcome of the product. So the first one, always remember, the first one will iterate. If you do 15 iteration, 20 iteration, maybe then you'll be closer to actually building a solution that will actually solve the problem. That's where the minimum viable product comes in. So keeping the user at the center and then iterate your way towards it. Quickly summarizing, the way I conceive design thinking is design part, which is bringing form and function together. Form is how does it look, how does it make you feel, and then function is what purpose it solves. It's both things. We're not creating art, we are creating a solution which is appealing, right? But it solves a problem. Thinking is both creative and business. Business thinking is very logical, ROI driven, what is the return on investments and other metrics. But creative part is you're searching for novelty over there, right? And that's where I think the liberal arts and humanities discipline is so important, that you bring it all together. And the importance of that will continue to bring it all together. And if you're able to bring the creative and business thinking combined with the form and function, that's what design thinking is. And then one misnomer is that I would call it design doing, because the focus is on action rather than just thinking about it, analyzing it, and talking about it. You have a question?
So I was asking you, how do you combine creative and business together? Like, let's say business focuses more on, like, it's more narrowed down, but creative is more explorative. So how can you, these both seem like polar opposites? How do you combine both of these thinking?
Just hold your thoughts for another 5 minutes. Hopefully the next few slides will capture some of that. I'll see. If not, then we can discuss. So these are some examples from my teams that kind of we've done. So observation is very important. I tell you, in one, I think we were engaged with Airbus helicopters unit many years back, and our team actually did user research. They went to their customers and people who were serving their customers and observed them. There's a whole user, so that's where a lot of people, and we had in our team people who were trained in psychology and they were from anthropology field. They knew how to uncover said and unsaid hidden needs of the users by observing them, by asking questions, open-ended, to understand the why behind it, and then they brought those into insights. And the way we were able to do that is then we somewhat synthesized it, and I'll talk about that. But then we also captured some of the audio and video recordings of those customers. And then we played a kind of a sequence for 15 minutes, some of the those audio recordings and some of the video recordings for the business executives. It was revealing. They were glued and they were surprised that this is what their customers are saying about their experience, right? And I think that's where they said, okay, well, these are great insights, now we want to. So that was a moment where we were able to bring some creative aspects into the business. Then we earned the right to play over there, to bring some new way of thinking. But bringing the voice of the customers by observing them, instead of just judging them, you really building empathy means you're not judging them. You try to understand what is their challenge so that you can remove the friction from them. You can help them through technology, through experience, through whatever, right? You do right along with these. If you're building an app, you have a great idea of an app, where will the user use it? How will the user use it? What is the user currently doing to fulfill that need, right? And then how will, so we actually went into, this was with Kellogg's, we were working with them, so we went to homes of a lot of users to understand what do they do with the ingredients and stuff like that. So we brought that information into strategic decision-making part, right? So that part, bringing the user research part into how you want to design, which direction the company wants to go. I think that's very important. Our team, the user research team goes out in the field, they collect all this information, they come into a blank space, they put all those insights in, we start emerging themes, and then we start making our point of view. We then hold workshops where the business and IT and other stakeholders, operations, finance, they all come together, where all of this insights are shared, and then together you make them your design partners. And that's another part. So where I think then they have a stake in it. Now they've understood, the user research team has brought in a lot of insights about their customers. Now they are part of the solution design. We have not invested anything in technology, engineering resources. We are just exploring the problem space and then bringing all those perspectives together into, and then you are just with, you're sketching new ideas in this forum. And here, now I really love the environment that Habib has created over here. Very nice collaborative room and stuff like that. This is great, but this is the last leg of that stool. The first part is the people, process, and then the third part is the place. So, nice place. So this place is not very clever, like very rigid furniture. This was at our client site, but we actually just posted white kind of flip charts across the wall and converted that space into, because we had the right people, we knew the process to take it from exploration, ideation, and then prototyping. We did prototype as well, and this was the first prototype of a dashboard that actually, after several iterations, it won a couple of design awards as well. We also kind of do iterative design. So before you have those, you build those products, you tell a story through a storyboarding. And you might have kind of done some storyboarding work over here in some classes as well. I tell you, that is one of the most important skills you can build. It is the most important skill you can build, because that helps you convey a future vision in terms of a narrative. And then you can use that to get feedback from who? The target users, right? So that's where the human factor becomes so important. Because if you are able to get, I tell you, so many times we were thinking, well, this experience or this app is gonna be groundbreaking, and this is how we, and when we laid out that storyboard in front of the target user, they were able to give so much feedback, constructive feedback, that hey, this is not gonna work because of X, Y, and Z. Then we had to like start over again. But then at that point, we had not invested engineering resources. We were just working with our ideas and pen and paper. Right? So it was easy to iterate, right? And then you can like tell that story. What you see at the end on your apps or on the different websites or the products is the end result, but there is a lot of work that has gone into it, right? So that's what we talked about, understanding the customer needs, right? Now the important part is, when you graduate, you might be working with a lot of enterprises. In enterprises, even though you talk to your customers, you understood the challenges, you iterated your way towards solutions, how would you convince other stakeholders inside? Because there is a lot of organizational inertia that kind of holds organizations from transforming. So let me give you a little bit. So in organization, generally there is a manager, there's a head who reports to the executives, and then there's a team, right? And you'll be part of the team or something like that. Let's say you join, I don't know, marketing department or IT department, and you went through that information gathering from users and customers, you brought in some good ideas. But then this team cannot execute on that. Why? Because there are numerous other teams. So we just forward it a little bit. Because there are other teams that they need to align with, right? So what happens is that when you are doing those workshops, bring key influencers from across the organization as well. Make them part of the initial design and ideation. What will happen is that it will no more be your idea at that point. It will be a collective idea where everybody has input on it. Now what that requires? That requires empathy, active listening, opening up, getting their feedback, earning trust, which is essentially nothing but having that emotional intelligence piece. So let me just summarize that, and I'll probably skip some of these items. I don't think that this is too much focus over here. Organizations are, the key point of this slide is that organizations are transforming. The key part of transformation, when you hear the term business transformation or digital transformation, it is nothing but cultural transformation. right? It's the cultural transformation. And cultural transformation is essentially the human aspect. So let me just quickly summarize what we talked about for enterprises, for business. Staying relevant means understanding customer needs, and making change happen is influencing the stakeholders, and transforming the organization business is about transforming the culture. All of these three essentially require human factor, right? So building the emotional quotient to be able to do that, customer centricity, influencing the skills, and cultural transformation, it all requires human factors. Those organizations where this does not happen, very difficult for them to survive in the future. So we talked about how to stay relevant as a business. Now let's quickly talk about how to stay relevant as an individual, and then we can have any part. What percentage of your success depends on your technical capabilities? Is it 70? Is it 45? Is it 15? Okay, man. Actually, there was a study you might have heard. They studied a lot of highly accomplished people, and they looked at what were the reasons for their success to reach that pinnacle of success. And only 15% contributed based on their technical skills. The remaining was essentially the human factor in that. So your ability to work with others, your ability to listen to others, your ability to influence others, your ability to lead, right? And that's where I think the liberal arts and humanities curriculum will prepare you much better than purely technical domains part. So that's the key part. Now in this section, I'll share with you some key insights. I've written a blog, so this picture is from my blog as well, so you can check out. My view is that the reason there are three key skills for every individual to really hone on a continuous basis. One is growth mindset, the other one is creative confidence, the third one is storytelling. And let me tell you more about that. Growth mindset is more about intellectual humility and the belief that you can improve at every step in every way possible. I'll give you one example. So this was, I think, Carol Dweck from Stanford. She wrote that book about that as well. And she did a lot of experiments with the kids. And this will be very revealing. So she brought in kids, 5th grade kids, something like that, and they gave them maths quizzes. When one group came, she said, "Oh, well, you've done well, you must be very intelligent." And let the kids kind of go to the other room. The other group, she said, "Oh, you've done well, you must have worked really hard." Just the appreciation had the difference of appreciating intelligence versus ability to work hard. What happens is that the two groups were given 8th grade quizzes. So they were 5th grade kids, they were given 8th grade, much harder, right? They were able to see that the first group, whose intelligence was appreciated, they gave up, I think, 8 minutes sooner than the other group. So other group, whose hard-working abilities were appreciated, continued to work for 8 more minutes, and also they were able to have better results too. Not only that, she continued further. The first group, whose intelligence was appreciated, they were more prone to cheating and lying than the other group. They were more honest. Why? Because they had internalized that, hey, intelligence is something which people deem that it's innate ability. But hardworking can be overcome with your hard work. So it's an ability that you can improve. That's what the essence of growth mindset is. It's not just about your ability to solve problems, it's about your ability to communicate, to build relationships, to come up with ideas. You can learn and improve. So just that change, yes, I can improve, and no, I cannot improve, makes a huge difference. That's the first thing. So always remember, in any situation, you can improve, right? The second part of creative confidence. Now this will be interesting, and I'll just skip it. You all agree that creativity is important for innovation, right? How do you define innovation?
I feel like innovation is at least 50% creativity and then 50% just logical thinking.
Good. Okay.
I would say it is invention, you have some good invention, and then another thing is adoption, that it gets adopted in the market. So when both of these combine, they can form something.
I'll give you, so I'm engineering, I'm an engineer from my education, so I'll give you a very small, simple equation, which will hopefully be memorable for you. Innovation is creativity times execution, right? If you just are creative, you will produce amazing artwork. If you just focus on execution, somebody else will be creating an idea and you'll be executing on it. But if you bring that together, that's where innovation comes in, right? And execution is more about kind of solving the problem, which is clearly defined. On the other hand, creativity is finding the right problem to solve. And that's where the human factor comes in as well. How do you find the right problem? Because you build empathy with the end users, you spot problems, right? That's where the breakthrough happens. If you're able to combine that, I think that's where magic happens, right? So, raise your hand if you think you are creative. Keep your hands raised if you think you are more creative than a 5-year-old. Why?
You have too many filters.
Yeah. I'll tell you in the next slide some important information about yourself that will make you feel good. Guaranteed. Okay, this is George Land, you've seen, how many of you have seen some iteration of an IQ test where like there are 4 pictures and you have to predict the 5th one?
Yeah.
He's the guy who created that. So in 1960s, he was approached by NASA to create a test to find the top creative NASA engineers for some special projects. So he did that. After that, what he did was he gave it to 5-year-old kids. Can you guess what percentage of 5-year-old kids would have come under creative genius category? What percentage of kids in that 5-year-old category would be creative geniuses, like Einstein level? 95, 70,
60?
98%.
Oh.
98%. Now, what he did was, 5 years down the line, when those same kids were 10 years old, he gave the same test to those kids. Can you guess what percentage of the same kids would be in creative genius category when they were 10 years old? 20, 30, 70, 30%. What happened between 5 and 10 years old? Primary school happened. Learn this, cram this, all that kind of thing, right? Now, he did not stop there. He gave the same test to the same kids when they were 15 years old. Any guesses? At this point, the guesses are pretty much right.
12%.
12%. You guys are too pessimistic. 12%. Then he gave the same test to a sample of adult population in the US. Any guesses? What percentage of adults would be in creative genius category?
60?
2%.
Oh.
So a population that was born creative genius was flipped. Think about it, right? We educate ourselves out of creativity. Our culture, our environment, our education sucks our creativity. Only those rare individuals like Elon, Steve, and others who are able to retain their child in them are able to then drive changes that we all benefit from, right? So always remember that. We are all creative geniuses, you just need to discover it. And I'll give you some tips on how to do that.
So you can reverse this.
Yes. Here are some techniques, some tips, which will help you, okay? Which has helped me as well. So this a few tips for all of you. So remember that, and when you go to organizations, you bring those with you. Hopefully that will be helpful for the organization, for you personally, and your teams and others. Number 2 thing is, there are divergent thinkings and convergent thinking. Whenever you are exploring, remember I talked about finding the problem space first, and then finding the solution. Always separate the two. So when you are like discussing, brainstorming the problem, for a solution for a problem, say, okay, do we understand whether we're solving the right problem first? Let's explore that. In that, first you spend a little bit of time in generating a lot of ideas. Let's generate all the ideas. At that point, quantity matters, not quality. Okay, if you have like a team of 5, you'll be able to be surprised to see, if you say, okay, just write the problem you're trying to solve. How might we, that's what, fill in the blank, right? You'll be able to see different perspectives coming in. So you generate, and then you kind of start narrowing it down. Okay, well, let's validate it. Once you have that, and then you're, okay, now let's brainstorm on what is the solution to that problem for that context, for that user. And then you do the same thing. Let's come up from vackiest ideas to most pragmatic ideas, generate ideas as much as possible, no judgment. And then you start kind of in the next round, you start narrowing. If you just separate that out, problem space and solution, and then within those, creating choice, divergent thinking and convergent thinking, you will be able to see the quality of your ideas improve drastically. The other part is, we either win or we learn. You guys have seen WD-40, right? It's a lubricant. What does 40 mean? You know? It's the 40th trial of those, I think, NASA engineers who had the idea that we can combine different chemicals to find a lubricant which is not too greasy, but it still provides lubrication. If they had stopped at 39, they would never have produced this. So always remember, every iteration you're learning, right? And then at the end you'll learn. Challenge the status quo, right? Our society had the norm that do not give rights to strangers. Do not let strangers come and stay with us. These multi-billion-dollar companies are found on challenging those norms, right? Ask questions. Be dumb. You'll be surprised, so many people, and maybe seniors could attest to it, that you must have withheld questions coming in an executive forum just because I might be deemed stupid. I'm asking this question. I tell you, other people also have similar questions. They're just withholding. So don't be that person. Be dumb. Ask that question, and you will see the kind of insights you'll get. Progress is better than perfection. Right? Don't shoot for perfection. Ship whatever, like, build, and then kind of put it out, and then test it, and then get feedback. Right? Now this is coming from improv. You guys have some improv classes over here or something like that?
Yeah.
Right? So in improv there is an exercise called no but and yes and. So I don't have time, I'm running out of time over here, but we would have done an exercise. But anyways, in any setting, just think about, count the number of times people use the word no or but. In your environment, you should change that to yes and. And then you will just see the level of ideas that will improve, right? Because no but will stop you from kind of progressing further, building on the ideas. Yes and will let you progress it further. So we talked about growth mindset, we talked about creative confidence, and the final part is the storytelling part. So essentially, leadership is about influence. We're all selling. I'm over here selling you some ideas, right? Habib University sold you some ideas. That's why you joined Habib University. Everyone has sold you something. Religious leaders are selling you some stories too. Everyone is telling you something, every story. The other point is, and these are like our last few slides. I know we're running out of time. We always focus on economics, that hey, human beings are rational creatures, maximizing utilities. Actually, that's not the case. We are emotional, we are biased, we are social, we are empathic. And the only way to influence is through stories. This is a metaphor of a rider on the elephant. Elephant is the emotional self, your limbic, the oldest part of your brain, where a lot of decision making happens. Your rider is the frontal cortex, where the rational brain resides. And one thing which, if you can take over here, is that a lot of times you will hear that, oh, we gathered the data and we're making decisions. Actually, you make decisions and then you gather data to support it. Right? So, important point is that you kind of inculcate stories. The way you influence others is through a story. People have raised billions of dollars through telling stories, selling that vision, right? Now, having some data to back it up is helpful, because then you need to like execute on it. But then at the end of the day, it's the stories that sell, not the data and facts, right? So with that, I think all of these, some thoughts But the more you kind of actually do it, the more you learn, the more you kind of grow. So with that, thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you spending time over here on the second day of classes this year. And any thoughts and questions? I would love to hear your thoughts.